Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing Oogie Boogie. I was asked to do this actually, and I thought he was super cute and stupid looking all at the same time that I needed to do him. So even down to the little spider that hangs off of him. So these little buggies, they don't stay in his mouth. I just had that because that's what they wanted. I mean, that's what the picture they sent me, that's what they wanted. So his mouth is obviously open for these little goodies to sit inside. He's pretty silly looking, but pretty super duper easy to make. So let's jump right into this. So the closest yarn I could find is this stuff. It's got some of that flex in it. Very difficult to find yarn these days. Everyone seems to be out. So this is by Loops and Threads. It's their impeccable collection. And it's called brown tweed, but there's nothing brown about it. It's gray. It's the exact same color that you're looking at. I have my colors set to be like real colors. But it's called brown tweed. It's not brown. So I don't know. Somebody's colorblind that works over there. Calls for a 5mm hook, but I chose to make it tighter with a 4.5, so that's what I'm going to be using. So this guy is built flat, but the two different pieces are very different pieces. So we're going to start with a chain 31. So that's my chain 31. It's fairly big too, actually. Let's do the measurements. So this guy measures, I mean, if I was to stretch his to be top hat out, 12 inches, like a whole foot if I was to stretch his hat out. And he's about, with the arm span, he's about 10 inches with the arm span. But then just his base is 7 inches. So, I mean, he's not a small dude. You can tell by my hand. Anyway, once you got your chain 31, you're going to do 30 single crochets back up. Because that one stitch still stays on your hook. So that's my 30 back up. So you're going to chain one and you're going to turn, and for the next 12 rows you're just going to do one single crochet in each of these 30 stitches. So by the time you're done, if you need to count your rows, you should have 13 altogether. And I will see you on the other side. So you should have 13 rows, which means you should be on the same side as your straggler for an odd number row. We did the first chain row, and then I decided to do 12. So you should have 13 altogether. We're going to start decreasing. So PDF users, you're going to see this written as SC2TOG 2 times, because that's what I want you to do. I want you to decrease 2 times. So go into your stitch and do it. The first 2 decrease, and then the next 2 get decreased. You'll see it with brackets around it because it's a special sequence. Then you're going to do 22 stitches till you have 4 stitches left at the end, and you're going to do the same thing. That's my 22nd stitch. I have 4 stitches left. So I'm going to decrease. And I'm going to decrease. Chain 1, turn your work. So we're going to do the exact same thing for the next round, the next row, except for you're going to have 18 stitches across. So you're going to decrease twice. Then you're going to do 18 single crochets. That's my 18. I've got 4 stitches left. I'm going to decrease these 2. And I'm going to decrease the last 2. Chain 1, turn your work. I have allergies, if you can hear my voice. It may come in and out. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to decrease twice. We're going to do 14 single crochets across, and then decrease twice. So decrease these first 2. Then decrease these 2. 14 single crochets. This is my 14th stitch. I've got these 4 stitches left. I'm going to decrease these 2. And then I'm going to decrease the last 2. Chain 1, turn your work. So this is what you should have. The way it comes in like this is perfect. That's what we want. For the next 7 rows, you should have 18 stitches. For the next 7 rows, I just want you to put 1 single crochet in each of these 18 stitches. Counting with the very first one. It's a big guy, but don't miss him. So this is what it should look like right now. Pretty funny looking. So we're going to continue our decreases, but we're only going to do it one time on each side. So I want you to decrease these first 2. You're going to do 14 single crochets across and decrease the last 2. That's my 14 single crochets. I've got 2 stitches left. I'm going to decrease those last 2. Chain 1, turn your work. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to decrease the first 2. We're going to do 12 stitches across and then decrease the last 2. So decrease 12 single crochets. That's my 12 single crochets, and then I'm going to decrease the last 2. Chain 1, turn your work. Same thing again, decrease the first 2. You're going to do 10 single crochets and decrease the last 2. That's my 10 single crochets. I'm going to decrease these last 2 stitches. Chain 1, turn your work. You should have 12 stitches. So I just want you to, for the next round, just do 1 single crochet in each of these 12 stitches. Chain 1, turn your work. So, the very last round of the first panel, I need to put the bottom jaw. So I need to do the bottom jaw for this. The other panel I do the top jaw. So I need to do this bottom jaw. And it needs to be fairly thick because I've got to sew this black in here for the inside of his mouth. I've got to sew it to something. Plus leave what looks like a lip on the outside. So what I chose to do in this instant is a front post half double crochet. So these are all your posts right in here. And that's how you're going to pick them up. So this hole is a shared space because not only do you come out of it on the first post, you go back into it to pick up second post. You're going to have 11 posts even though you have 12 stitches. You're going to have 11 posts to do. So we're going to do a half double. You're going to yarn over. You're going to go in and pick up this front post. Then you're going to yarn over, pull through, and finish the stitch. That's going to be your half double front post. All the way across. So it's only 11 posts. And my last post, which is my 11th one, oops, I forgot to yarn over. So it puts this thick edging on. So when we sew the black, we're actually going to use these stitches to sew into, leaving this on the outside. So that's the plan when we sew the two pieces together. But I'll go over that again when we're there. Right now you can fasten off. So one of them needs a sewing tail. The other one that I do, I end off with the hat. So you don't need to have a sewing tail for both if this isn't where you want to start sewing them together. But this is where I started sewing them together because it was way easier because you got to leave the big space anyway for the mouth. So this is where I left myself a sewing tail. It's got to be pretty long. Mine's probably too long, but it's always better to have more than you need than not enough. So this guy can get tucked away, and then we'll start our second piece. So this is on the outside. You've got to weave on the back side of this because that's the inside of this guy. So panel number 2, it's obviously going to start off the same. You're going to chain 31 and do 30 single crochets. You're almost going to build it the exact same way, except for when we get up to the top here, it's going to be different. So everything's the exact same, but different. Anyway, chain 31. So that's my 31 chain. So I'm going to put the pattern on the screen You can do up till the pattern stops, then we'll meet back up. Because like I said, the pattern's going to be exactly the same until we get up to here. So the first, I'm going to say 27 stitches, or 27 rounds are going to be exactly the same. And then I'll meet you back up here on round 28 because that's when it changes. So I'll put the pattern on the screen and I will see you on the other side. So I am done my up to round 27. This is going to be round 28. I've already chained one, but I'll go back. So this is where I left off. I haven't chained one, I haven't done anything. This is my last stitch. From here, I'm going to chain 16. So that's my chain 16. So you're going to come over here and you're going to attach to the other side, chain one, and turn your work. So ignore this for a minute. Starting in your first stitch down here, you're going to do 11 single crochets. That's 11. And now we're going to work up this chain. And working up the chain, I want you to do 1/2 double crochet and an increase in the next 16 stitches, which is the chain that you made. So make sure you're starting in the right spot. So that's 1/2 double, and then your next stitch gets the increase of 2 half doubles in the same space, and repeat. So I'm on my last stitch. So we're just going to continue around and around and around. Your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and a decrease. So you might want to put a marker in. We're going back to single crochets. So now we're just going to work around in a like amigurumi around, no slip stitching or anything. We're just going to work in the round for this. So 1 single crochet, and then your next stitch is the decrease. And repeat. So I have 24 stitches. I did it all the way around and I have 2 stitches left at the end. So you have 24 stitches. Your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and a decrease. Oh, I think I had 16 stitches. For the next 3 rows, you're going to put 1 single crochet in each stitch. I will see you on the other side. So this is what it should look like. This is what you should have at this point. This is going to be his upper head. So we have to keep decreasing to make his pointy hat. So you're going to do another 1 single crochet decrease all the way around. So I can't do any more, but I have 1 stitch left, and this gives me 10 stitches. I'm just going to put a 1 single crochet in there for 10 stitches. For the next 6 rows, I want you to put 1 single crochet in each of these 10 stitches. Or you can just count to 60 like I'm going to do. So that's my 6 rows. And now we can decrease again. 1 single crochet, decrease. Again, we'll bring you down to 7 stitches. Oh, or 8 stitches. 8 stitches, I lied. I didn't really count this section because it's not that important to me. So for the next 4 rows, you're going to put 1 single crochet in each of these 8 stitches. So I'm just going to count to 32. So we're too small to do any real sort of decreases, so we're just going to do a decrease here. We're going to do 3 single crochets and then another decrease. So that's 6 stitches. For the next 2 rows, I want you to put 1 single crochet in each of those 6 stitches, so I'm just going to count to 12. And that's my 12. So we can fasten off. You don't need a sewing tail up here. We're just going to do a weave. We're going to cinch the top. That's it. That's all you need up at the top. So you're just going to kind of go in and out and around using your front loops. Kind of 2.5 times. And then you're going to want to secure that with a little bit of a knot. We're putting a spider up here at the end, so it doesn't matter if it's pointy or not. And then you can just kind of go down and weave. We're not putting any stuffing up at the top because we just want it to hang. The only place your stuffing is going to go is in this. So not even this part. It's just going to be this part that your stuffing goes into. We're going to sew some eyes and put eyebrows on there for sewing purposes. And so he has a stuffed head. None of this is getting stuffed. So your hat's going to end up hanging like that, sort of, after we put the spider on it. It'll just naturally pull it down. So when we sew this black mouth on, you're going to kind of use this part, these pieces here, to sew with, and leave this for the upper lip. So this is the outside. So this guy at the bottom, he's going to have to get weaved. Well, technically this is the inside. I shouldn't say that. This is going to be the inside. This will be stuffed. This is the back of his head. So we can weave on this side. But I mean, if you do it politely enough, it doesn't really, it's not going to matter which side. Just try to keep that square. So now that we have our two sides done, I'm going to zoom out a titch. Now that we have our two sides done, push you back a bit. There. We grab our other side, and remember this has to be on the outside because that's going to be his bottom jaw. So we get all matchy-matchy, and we sew these two pieces together. Don't be too concerned about how close his mouth is, like this, because when we put that black thing in, it's going to keep his mouth open anyway when we put the inside in. So don't be too overly concerned. And you need this hole here to stuff him with. So once you have him all lined up, you kind of know where you're going to start sewing. Our fake black stitches we're going to put in after he's all together, so I want you just to sew all the way up to here. Don't do anything with the mouth. We need that open. So I just did a regular whip stitch. That's all I did. So I'm just about back around. I only have this much of a hole, so I'm going to start stuffing it. You don't need to be too serious about how much you put in the corners because we're actually going to sew across because that's the way he's built. So he is kind of a sloppy little bag of whatever. I don't even know what it's supposed to be. Honestly, I've never seen the movie, so I was just asked to build this guy, so I've never seen the movie. I have no idea what this thing is supposed to be. I do know that he's pretty sloppy and baggy, and we have to sew his what I'm guessing are supposed to be feet down here at the bottom. So that's the plan. So he's pretty loosely stuffed, but you can You can stuff them as much as you want. It's your guy. So shove some up here too before we completely close this guy in with the black that we're putting in here. Make sure his head is stuffed. So I'm not going to stuff that part. I'm going to stuff this much, but I'm going to leave this not stuffed. And then just keep in mind we're using this here to sew the black into, so you can always worry about this part later. But we can shove some more in here before we put the black mouth in. So we'll worry about him later. I'm gonna just cut this off, but I'm gonna leave some yarn in case I need it. But we can worry about that later. Let's get our black made for our mouth so we can close this guy up. So, making the mouth part, we're going to use black. And we're going to start with a magic ring of 6 single crochets. So your next round is going to be 2 single crochets in each stitch. We're building this amigurumi still. So after our first stitch, our second stitch goes in, and then we can put our second stitch in that same space. 2 single crochets in each stitch around will give you 12 stitches. Your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and an increase, and this will bring you up to 18 stitches. That's 1 single crochet and then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space, and repeat. Your next round is going to be 2 single crochets and an increase. This will bring it up to 24 stitches. That's number 1. That's number 2. And then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. And repeat. Your last round is going to be 3 single crochets and an increase, and this will bring you up to 30 stitches, and then you can fasten off with a sewing tail. It's number 1, 2, and 3, and then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. So you can fasten off. With a sewing tail. This guy doesn't really matter. You can just cut him off shorter. So you can sew, it doesn't matter even what end you sew in. So let's start with the bottom. So you kind of gotta flip this over. This stays on the outside. These are the stitches you're gonna use to sew the bottom on. These guys there. So So starting as far over to the edge as you can. Like, that's not a stitch, so make sure you're just going into the stitch. Don't worry about the rest later. So just go stitch for stitch. Go pick this stitch up, pick up the next stitch. Next stitch. So one last stitch for the jaw down here, and then we pop over, get stuffing out of the way, and use these underneath. So you're gonna have to kind of work around the side here. Work up the side, but on the inside, so it's not going to be noticeable. And then here you kind of just got to pick these up sideways. It's hard to show you without getting my hands in the way. So before you completely sew it up, just make sure you have the stuffing in it that you want. And I think I'm pretty good. So just grab whatever you can on the side here. Just make sure it's on the inside. Even if it's one little piece, it'll hold, because all the rest of it's holding it. And then I'm kind of back around to where I started. So I just want to make a small wee little knot that nobody will ever see. So push up on the black now and shove that stuffing right up in there. And then this guy can just go down and pop out somewhere. So his mouth is always going to be open. A little bit. So that's his mouth. There's nothing you can really do about closing it up entirely. So now that he's taken care of this way, we can just put a little knot in here to secure this close that nobody will ever see. And then just weave in and out, back and forth. Alrighty. He's certainly funny looking. So he needs arms. But before we do that, let's do this little spot down here. He needs feet. There's two ways to do it. You can do it this way, which is what most of his pictures are like. That's what most of his pictures show. If I can thread my needle. So on one end, make a slip knot. Or you can do his feet like that. I mean, it's completely up to you. I'm just going to do it the way it's shown. So I'm going to go in to reattach with my slip knot. So I'm going to go through the loop. Oh, I think I went through my, what? There we go. This is frayed for some reason. So once you go through the loop, make a double knot. When we weave, that's not going to be noticeable. So I went through both pieces going in and out like this. And then I went back and I did the exact same thing the other way. It's a little harder the other way. It's hard to keep him still. So you don't have to pull super duper tight because his things aren't super duper tight. So if you have enough, we're going to pop over here now. This is where you got to be careful of how much you pull. So pop over to where you think it's going to be about the same. And you're going to do the same thing. In and out. All the way through. And then back again. This way. Again, don't have to pull tight. Just like that. It doesn't have to be that noticeable. And then I'm going to grab a tiny little piece of yarn, like fabric. I'm going to do the smallest of little knots just to keep this snug. And I'm going to weave. So that's kind of sucks the knot in when I pull. And that's how I did his little feet. And then this here, when I weave this in, it will pull the knot right down as well. He is a stupid looking guy, I gotta say. Like, I don't even know what this is all about. He's a stupid looking guy. So anyway, let's move on to arms next. So this is my arm. I've got the one sewn on. So we just build it and then mattress stitch it. It's probably the best stitch, but you can do a whip stitch. You can do whatever you want. But anyway, I did not put stuffing in the end. I just put stuffing up here. So we go along this whole guy with this black thread. This will change the shape of this a little bit. Just kind of stretch it out a little bit. Anyway, so this is the arm and that's what we're going to do next. So you need to make a magic ring of 4 single crochets. We do from the pointed tip down. Oh, that's my 4 single crochets. I just want you to put 1 single crochet in each of these 4 stitches because we want to have a point. And that's kind of how we get one. So if you need to use a stitch marker because you're not sure where your stitches are, then that's okay, but I'm just going to do my 4 like this. So before we carry on, this thing needs to kind of get tightened down. It's a good thing I've got the fast forward button because that took forever. Not sure why. So I find this gets in my way, and that's why I like to just do it, take care of it, cut it off so it doesn't get in my way. So your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and an increase. So the stitch you're in looks like it's an elongated stitch, so you got to make sure you pop over here for your first stitch. But if you got a stitch marker, and then you'll be able to kind of notice that. So 1 single crochet increase, you're going to do that 2 times. We're only increasing by 2 each row. And then just use your tip to kind of straighten it out, get the shape that it's supposed to be. It'd be a lot easier to hold. So your next round is going to be 1 single crochet in each of these 6 stitches. I'm just going to count to 6. So I'm not going to use my stitch marker because I find it very annoying for small things like this. But I know where my stitches are. If you're not familiar with your stitches, I would suggest a stitch marker. So your next round is going to be 2 single crochets and an increase. You're going to do this 2 times. And it's going to give you 8 stitches when you're done. And then you're going to do 1 single crochet in each of those 8 stitches. Your next round is going to be 3 single crochets and an increase. This will bring you up to 10 stitches. And same thing, you're doing it twice. 3 single crochets and then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. One more time. So this gives you 10 stitches, so I just want you to put 1 single crochet in each of those 10 stitches. Your next rounds are going to be 4 single crochets and an increase, and this will bring you up to 12 stitches. Do it twice. And then you guessed it, followed up by 1 single crochet in each of those 12 stitches. One more increase and then we're done. We're not increasing anymore. 5 single crochet increase. Two times. And you should have 14 stitches. For the next 3 rows, you're just going to put 1 single crochet in each of these 14 stitches. So that's my 3 rows. I'm going to fasten off. So you need enough of a tail to do a mattress stitch, or a whip stitch, I suppose, if you're doing that. So I pinched this off so I knew I wasn't going to be putting any stuffing down there. And I didn't put much stuffing in the arm to begin with, but you do not want any stuffing on there. So let's get sewn on open, because I, again, use the mattress stitch. So it's just over the little hump. It's hard to hold still. Over the little hump part. So once I kind of attached myself, I just laid it flat. I'm going in the wrong direction. So all I did was laid it flat on my sew line to do my mattress stitch. So a mattress stitch is grabbing some from down here. And don't try to get into the stitches, just grab above the stitches. They're called bars, if you can see them. Well, they're technically not bars, they're fake bars. So you're going to grab some body, you're going to grab just above the stitch, these 2 pieces. And that's it. You don't need to pull, you can pull after. That's the best part about a mattress stitch, is you don't have to pull right away. It gives you a little bit of wiggle room. It's just a better hold, it's a better look, but you can do whatever you want. So once I'm all the way across, I just pull to tighten all that down. You don't need much of a body to make, or much of even the arm to make a big impact. If you're just grabbing a couple of pieces, it'll be fine, because you're doing that probably 20 times around, so it's going to be an okay hold. So once I get around that little corner, I do the same thing on this side. I just lay it flat, and then I do my whip stitch, or my mattress stitch. So again, once you're across, just give her a pull. It sounded perfectly Canadian in that sentence. Give her. And I am Canadian, in case you're wondering. In case you're all wondering. There. And my arms. Oh my guy. So since I'm way under here, I took a few pieces, well, one little piece, and I made a knot. Just for my own personal liking. And then of course I'm going to pop out. And the hole I popped out from my other arm. Get that off a bit. So I'm going to tie these 2 together in a double knot and poke it down. That way if something does happen to my arms, they're at least tied together on the inside. But you don't have to do all that. That's just a me preference. There. So I'm not sure mine are even. They're close. I actually do better with the mattress stitch than I do anything else. So, get some black. We're going to do his eyes, and then we'll make eyebrows. And then we'll do all the little, well, not all the little, but all the black. All the way around that looks like, make it look like he's sewed together. So you just need a little bit of black for these eyes. So they're angry. They're angry eyes. So you can pop up wherever. The eyes sit kind of low, so just above the half double. And then you just go back and forth after you get where you want them. You just go back and forth a few times. And then I'm going to pop over here. We're going to start the next one. And then just make sure you're kind of even with what you're doing over here. And again, I'm just going to turn them upside down. Again, it's just a matter of going back and forth a few times. It's the same spot, but this eye looks bigger. I'm just going to have to pull tighter, I think. Anyway, just make sure your eyes are even. Steven. That's not bad. I'm going to put angry looking eyelids over them, so you could do more. I guess they don't have to be that angled. My eyes weren't that angled in the last one. Alright, I'm going to take this out and try again. I did my other eyes twice too because I couldn't get them right. Alright, we're going to try these eyes again. I had to do my other one twice too. I always get that angle. I make eyebrows to make him look angry, so I guess his eyes don't need to be angled that much. So I'm going to start over here. Yeah, I'm going to kind of go sideways for his eyes. And then I'll use the eyebrows to make him look angry. So I'm going to go back and forth 4 times. I think that gives a nice thick eye. You just kind of got to guide your... Oh, I hate stuffing. You just kind of got to guide your eye. So that's my eyes. So I'm just going to go down and pop out the back of his head. Don't need to really worry about this, you can just cut it off. So his eyebrows are made with the gray. But all you have to do is make a chain and then just make sure it's going to go the distance. That's a chain 4, and then I fastened off. So chain 5 technically. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Technically 5 chains, but I chain 4 and then the fasten off part. And so I didn't sew this. So I went into the corner of his eye and I popped out the back. So you need decent tail for your chain. And then you just decide where you want it to go down. Pop out the same space. And that's all I did for that. And then I just tied these together and poked them down. So it's not going anywhere, and I didn't have to. See, I find when you sew eyebrows, you actually end up flattening them out, and I absolutely hate that. It's a pet peeve of mine that they flatten out when you sew them. But that's ultimately what happens. So I didn't want to sew these. Just wanted to... So just make sure this is a decent sized tail when you're doing your slip knot. So chain 4 and then the fasten off gives you 5 chains. So that's chain 4 and then the fasten off part. Technically. I should probably put it in my PDF. I will add that. That will be in the PDF, even though it's silly. I didn't put the worms in there, too. The worms I made, I didn't put those in. So again, just go into the corner of your crook of your eye. So that's how you're just going to get that angry look. But if you don't want your guy to be angry, then you don't need to do that. And then try to go to the same spot. And then out the same spot. Oh. I think mine needs to be a little higher. If it wasn't for his eyebrows. I mean, his eyebrows make his face, right? So if you don't do the eyebrows, I don't think it'll quite look like Oogie Boogie. I was asked to do this, and I knew I'd seen the character somewhere, but I was like, where in the heck? What is this thing I have to make for this person? So my husband says, wait a minute, I know that guy. And then he had to look it up, and he was like, oh, that's the Oogie Boogie guy from Nightmare Before Christmas. So there you go. There's a guy. So he's looking like Oogie Boogie. He's looking fine. So you can adjust his mouth. Like, it doesn't... His mouth will stay open unless you sew it closed. So there's real no way around that. But he's going to be eating the worms. So when I did the outline for my other guy here, I just used a little 2-weight cotton for that. So you can use thread, or you can use fingering weight, or you can use, like, you can use whatever you want. But I wouldn't use, like, the normal 4-weight. I wouldn't use that. But you can do whatever you want. It's your projects. I'm just saying, it may look silly. And I did this I had to do it in 2 separate things, because the more you sew with your yarn, the more it starts to fray. But I started at the tippy top of the hat. Because I meet back up there and make my spider with the same yarn. So He started right at the tippy top. So, because we have to make a spider web and a spider, leave I don't know, 4 inches or so hanging down. So you got to go down the side of his hat. So I go down and I go back up. You're just making lines, essentially, that look like you sewed. So starting's always a pain in the butt. So go back down through the top, find your next spot to pop out. And then that's all you're going to do. So from here, you're going to go down the hole you came out and pop out your new spot. So you can do them long, you can do them short, you can do them however you want. Just don't get a knot like I always do. Right off the hop. Because your piece has to be so long. So that's what you're gonna do all the way down. It doesn't take as long as what you would think it would take. So I have to get another piece, so I'm just going to come back out this hole. I'm going to leave that hanging until after to get another little piece. I didn't quite make it all the way around, which is fine because it's so... The pieces you have to use are so long. It kind of gets annoying. So I'm going to go back down this hole that I was in before. I just kind of got to start all over again. Leave this out a bit. Alright, so I'm going to meet up where I started. So we're going to make a spider. So this is the longest piece. So if you have a longer piece, then use that piece. We're going to end up using both pieces. But wherever you want the spider to start hanging, you're just going to make a series of knots. I mean, that's all I did. If you've got a little plastic spider at home that you can just hang off the end of this guy, I'm sure you can buy them at the dollar store, then that's probably fine too. But I just made a series of knots. That's all I did for mine. So once you've got what you think is a little bit of a body, just cut this guy off. And then kind of add him into the equation, because we need all the extra legs we can get. So now you're just going to tie this around. I have such fat fingers. And then, I mean, you can keep going if you want with the tying. But so well. My other guy turned out way better. Then he just hangs off the hat like that. I know it's hard to see. So, last but not least, we got to take care of this guy. I think it's fine if you cut it off, because no one's going to be pulling at that. But now we just make the bugs, and then he's all complete. So you just need your different colors for your different bugs. So I'm going to use some of this. Your bugs are so fast and easy. And then this is it. This project will be done. And you got an Oogie Boogie for Halloween. So chain 11. Or however long you want your bug. All you're going to do is slip stitch back up. So you got 10 working stitches. So once you've done your slip stitch, you can fasten off. You're not sewing this to anything, but anyway, tighten both your slip knots. So you got to tighten your slip knot and then tighten where you just fastened off. And then I cut these off to be little antenna so that he looks like that. And that's all I did for my bugs. So go ahead and make your bugs, and I'll meet you right back here. So these are my little bugs. This one is a chain 8. This one is a chain 6. And these are my chain 11, so all mine stay in my mouth. Like, I've been moving this one around from my video that's sitting off to the side here, and my bugs haven't fallen out of my mouth yet, so anyway, I'll zoom out a little bit. There we go. So, thanks for joining me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. He was kind of fun. I'll see you in the next video.